Ask you your read of Putin's next move here, because, for instance, beyond the losing the ground that Russian forces had gained since the invasion, you're talking about losing ground which Russia has held for 8 years in Crimea, and which, by the way, the Kremlin views as strategically essential, right? I mean, that is their warm water port in Crimea, so and so on. Do you then fear that Putin takes a step beyond where he's gone now, whether it's full mobilization or even use of weapons of mass destruction?
Well, again, full mobilization is too late. And beyond that, they've stripped their training base. They don't have the replacement vehicles. The export sanctions on microchips to Russia have crushed their industrial base and so forth. So that's too late. The consideration of tactical nuclear weapons, yes, you could have a tactically very disastrous situation, but it doesn't change the fundamental realities, which are that Russia just cannot generate the forces, much less employ them capably and competently. Their morale is rock bottom. They're not even sure what they're fighting for other than a paycheck or perhaps to stay out of jail. The morale on the Ukrainian side is sky high. They're winning. So the question at first is, can the Russians find new defensive lines, or do they have to fall all the way back in the east, for example, to the original lines of the Donbass, where there are very considerable, almost World War I like defenses? And then how do they hang on in these other locations? Yes, they'll find places where there are urban settings that they can use effectively and fight hard. Again, there will be tough fighting, tough casualties, a lot more damage. But Russia is in, again, a truly disastrous situation at this point in time. And crossing the nuclear threshold would be so profound, and the benefit of that, quote, benefit, would not be as profound. So I think, again, he's in a very difficult position. What he's going to do now is try to change the narrative and blame others and all the rest of this and find some way to explain why the special operation has failed.
So let me ask you, you mentioned the comparison to the Afghanistan war, Russia's experience in Afghanistan in the 80s. It took Russia nearly a decade to lose as many troops as it's lost in the span of months, frankly, more in Ukraine now. Afghanistan helped lead to the fall of the Soviet Union. I wonder, in your view, is President Putin's leadership now in jeopardy, given all he's invested in this invasion?
Well, he still clearly has a very, very solid grip on power in Russia. But this does obviously call that into question somewhat. And somewhere there are going to be individuals who are going to be raising serious questions. There have been officials, of course, from St. Petersburg that suggested he should resign. They ended up in jail. But there were others from St. Petersburg and Moscow. So, again, he's in a precarious situation, I think, although it's so difficult to predict. When someone who has been an autocrat, obviously, what is that moment that pushes them off the throne? And of course, he's a kleptocrat on top of everything else, and everyone is empowered by him. So, but what he has done to his country, again, as I think we mentioned before, he set out to make Russia great again. What he's really done is make NATO great again. And by the way, this changes the dynamic, I think, with respect to European and U.S. reluctance to say that Ukraine should be able to join NATO. Given what Russia has done, there has to be a security guarantee at the end of this. The only credible guarantee is NATO membership. And we can then say, look, you brought this on yourself. We were very sensitive to your feelings before. We did not want to needlessly provoke you. You have needlessly and unprovoked invasion of your neighbor. And this is the price that you're going to pay as a result of that.